Hi, I'm Susan Papanicholas from How Does Your Garden Grow in Seattle, Washington. It's late winter and I'm here today in my own garden to talk about dividing mint. I really love to grow mint in containers. Mint is a really invasive plant and I don't like to grow it in the ground or it takes over everywhere. So whenever I'm growing mint in my own garden or in a client's garden, I make sure it's growing in a container. And one way that I've found that keeps it really lush and beautiful, so I have a lot of mint on hand, is a little bit counterintuitive. I take it out of the pot each winter and divide it up into chunks and only plant part of it back. I've found that it works really well to help me have an abundance of beautiful mint all summer long in my garden. So I wanted to show you how I do this task to keep these containers looking beautiful and full of mint during the growing season. So the tools I have with me are my container of mint, which is actually, I think I've had mint in this pot probably for 10 years, the same plant that I've just divided and keep replanting. I've got some potting soil. I've got a trowel. I've got some things to use to divide or cut up the mint. I've got a very old pruning saw that's kind of gotten rusty and I use it for cutting roots up, and some pruners. And I've got a little bit of organic fertilizer. So I'm gonna start by just dumping this pot of mint out on the ground. It helps to have a tarp down or a paper bag like I have here. And you can just dump the whole root ball out and you will see the mint makes these runners that grow round and round and round. And when they start doing that, it sort of strangles the mint in the pot. It will get root bound and the mint won't grow very vigorously. So that's why I want to divide it before the growing season, before it gets started growing. And then it'll start growing much more lushly and very quickly fill this pot out again. So I'm going to start by just cutting off the bottom, and I can reuse this chunk. Just put it back in there. Potting soil doesn't go bad. You can reuse potting soil whenever you want. You want it to be loose and light. You don't want it to be full of roots. So this stuff that I can break up is loose and light enough that it can go right back into the bottom of the pot. Then I'll turn it over. I'm going to cut the tops back all the way to the ground, and this will help so that in spring when it starts growing again, everything will be fresh. I won't have old stems or old winter tattered leaves up. And even these leaves that look pretty fresh right now, by the time spring comes along, they'll have seen some stuff. We still have a little bit more winter to go, so they're going to look a little crummy by the time this mint starts growing in earnest. So I'm just cutting everything back. And then this is super easy. I'm just gonna break this into 4 pieces. And I find that this root saw really helps a lot. But I could also use pruners or even just kind of rip it open with my hands. And you'll see that in the center here, there aren't a lot of roots. It really sent those runners out and they were wrapping around the outside of the pot. So all that growth kind of gets concentrated on the outside of the pot, and then in the center of the pot, there isn't any new growth. So this, by dividing it, I'm helping have the new growth come up evenly in the whole pot, which ends up looking a lot better and giving me a lot more mint. So I want to just kind of get this into sections. Here's about half of it, and I'm going to cut this half in half again. So here's one section, here's one section, and here are 2 more sections of roots. Can just put some of this potting soil back in. I don't want to put this potting soil into another pot because it has a lot of mint roots in it, and the mint will very quickly take over whatever's growing in another pot. But it's perfectly fine to put it back into the pot where I'm going to keep growing the mint. And then I'm going to take 2 of these sections. I've got the pot about half full now, and I'm going to take 2 of these sections and put them back in to replant them. So I'll put like this one here kind of spread it out, and I'll put this one here. They're growing with the same orientation they had before in terms of what part is up. And I'm kind of spreading them out in here so they're loose and the stems have lots of room to expand and grow. And the top of the stems is about this far below the surface of the pot. And now I'm going to grab some fresh potting soil and fill the pot with potting soil. I'm completely burying those chunks that I had before, but I'm keeping the tops really close to the surface of the soil. And I know from experience that this soil will settle a little bit, so I'm gonna kind of poke it in, maybe tap this a little to get all the air pockets out. There. So now it's filled with soil, and those old chunks of mint are just below the surface. I can feel a stem right there. And it would be fine if you could see them, and it's also fine that they're buried. Mint is so vigorous, it's just gonna grow right up through that. And then I'm gonna put in some organic fertilizer. Follow the directions on the package given the size of your container. My dog Charlie loves the way this smells, and he's going to be really curious about this pot for a few days until the smell wears away. So if you have a dog in your house who might dig, you might want to kind of keep this away from where they can reach or keep it protected, because they'll be very curious once you've got that organic fertilizer in there. And basically that's it. This pot is now ready to go. So in March, when it starts growing again, it has fresh soil, some fertilizer, and lots of room to grow. As it's growing, I'm going to pinch the tips, and that will help it branch out and make more stems. So I will have an abundance of fresh mint to cook with and smell and use as garnish this summer.